Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Wednesday, January 13th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 232 days, the game against Michigan in 312 days. The Buckeyes are back home in Columbus, and hopefully by the time you hear this, we will be too, following their 52-24 loss in the 2021 National Championship game. My guest this morning is Buckeye Scoop's Marc Givler. Marc, after a little more time to reflect on that game, there was a lot that went wrong for the Ohio State defense, no question. How much of it do you chalk up to personnel shortages versus scheme issues, and how much was just bad execution and tackling?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was tackling and scheme, and of course, but you have to give Alabama credit. I think we all knew, even if we thought Ohio State was going to win the game, I think we all knew, 30, 35 points from Alabama was going to happen. You couldn't let them get to 50, obviously. Not enough defensive backs on the field. I would have played more nickel. I thought the tackling was really poor in the back seven. I thought the front four actually, if not won the line of scrimmage, at least stalemated to the point where the linebackers could fill and have some opportunities to make some plays in the run game. I don't think they tackled particularly well. I thought Najee Harris got a lot of tough yards after contact, where they had some chances to get Najee down at the line of scrimmage, get a 2nd and 10, a 2nd and 9, or if it's a 2nd and 10 and they ran and they get to 3rd and 3 or something. They weren't making the plays at the point of attack in the run game, and then the tackling in space on the receivers wasn't very good either. Just kind of I would say a little bit of both on the scheme. I wouldn't have played the 4-4. Not again. I would have let Najee Harris get a little bit more in terms of not so being so focused on stopping the run to where you get Devontae Smith doing what he did in the first half.
Yeah, well, Devontae Smith in the first half, 215 yards, 3 touchdowns. The fact that they didn't go away, they didn't switch to nickel. That was something that Ross Fulton had talked about on Buckeye Scoop all of last week. Hey, this is something you're going to want to do. You're going to want to play more nickel. They have been very reluctant to do that. They have been playing a lot of linebackers, 4-3, sometimes 4-4, as you mentioned, rather than going nickel. My question is, I guess, Ryan Day after the game talked about the fact that, you want to do what you do. You want to stay true to what you do. Is that a function of them not trusting the personnel in the nickel package? Or is that really just a philosophical, they really don't, they don't want to get away from it? And if that's the case, if what you're doing is giving up 215 yards to a guy in the first half, it seems like how much worse could anything else be?
Yeah, I do think there's some philosophical stuff there, and that makes sense. You want to have your core beliefs and philosophy on how defense should be played. I think it gets to a point sometimes though where you do have to kind of throw that stuff away and just screw it. We got to try something different. And I think it got to that point pretty early last night where by the middle of the second quarter, I think maybe toward the end of the second quarter, it was clear that this was not going to be a good night for the defense. And at that point, you do have to make a drastic call, a drastic change to try and reverse course there. That being said, there's some personnel issues in the secondary. They are not deep there right now. They've had some injuries. They've had some guys leave the program under unfortunate circumstances. Not to beat a dead horse, I've wondered I spent the last 3 or 4 years, whatever it's been now, wondering what on earth Taver Johnson 2.0 did at Ohio State, because it wasn't recruiting. And I think that was kind of, as I posted on the message board here on Tuesday, I kind of that was kind of his final parting gift, I think, to the program, was those guys who would now be, second, third year players. They were nowhere to be found because he didn't recruit anybody. And maybe that could have been a difference Monday night. But, they got to replenish that room. I'd be keeping a very close eye on the transfer portal for a plug and play guy at corner next year. I do like some of the young guys. I really like the guys they have coming in. It's just so hard to be an instant impact guy at corner. I mean, even like Jeff Okuda, it took a while. It took till really the very, very end of his freshman year where he started to flash a little bit. So I don't know that you can count on that to save you next year. So I'm thinking transfer portal for a corner. And then you develop the young guys you have, and hopefully by the end of next season, you've got a little more trust back there in terms of putting guys in the cover situations.
Yeah, what is the biggest question for this defense moving into next year? Is it the corners? I mean, there's going to be a lot of turnover personnel wise, and we don't know exactly how much, both between the transfer portal and also with the NFL draft declarations, which are going to be coming out sort of piecemeal over the next week or so. But is corner? I mean, corner, I think, was one of the big questions coming into this year. Is that still one of the big questions going into 2021?
Oh, it's my biggest. I think safety is. People are going to look at safety, and I get why they might want to do that, but I'm assuming Proctor's back. If that's the case, you've got Proctor, you've got Lathan Ransom has really stepped up here towards the end of the season. He's shown that he's probably going to be a pretty good player here. It was unfortunate he kind of got re-injured there, but Ronnie Hickman definitely flashed when he got some opportunities. I think they're going to have enough there. Do they have guys that can lock people down? I don't know. I don't know that they do. I think it's almost like they have a pitching staff right now with, a lot of number twos and a lot of number threes, but I don't think they have an ace. I don't think they have an ace right now as things stand today. And I don't know if you're going to get one of those in the transfer portal or not, but I think if nothing else, you have to go get a best guy you can and just, let there be some competition and let the kind of the cream rise to the top. Certainly we would expect Seven Banks to continue to improve. We would expect, the young guys to develop. They'll hopefully have a real offseason this year. But yeah, that's my huge question mark is the cornerback room. And I think it's going to be a strength of the team in a couple of years, but right now there's a transition period that's going to make this, I think, a little dicey.
On the other side of the ball during the game on Monday night, the loss of Trey Sermon obviously was a real killer in the early going. And that's not enough to swing the result of the game, but at least how much longer would that have just made the game competitive if you just add just nothing else but you had him into the mix?
Yeah, I think that would have helped. Certainly. Maybe they get off to a better start. Maybe they're not, chasing the game a little bit right away where Bama was up a touchdown here and a touchdown there. They couldn't get stops. I mean, I don't know how much to put on that. I certainly think the game could have been closer, but they could not get stops. I mean, unless Trey was going to go out there and cover somebody or tackle somebody, I don't know. I mean, maybe they control the clock a little better. Maybe the defense doesn't get as gassed as it looked. I mean, that defense looked gassed by the middle of the second quarter. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a closer game and some things can go differently, but ultimately, I look at they could not win with that defensive effort. They could not win with that defensive effort from a points perspective, and it wasn't just the points. I mean, my goodness, you kick the ball off in the second half and you give up a 7-minute drive, and you got a field goal, but you're down 21 and half the third quarter's over. So I just don't think they were going to have really any chance of winning that game with that type of defensive effort.
And just for people who didn't maybe hear this yesterday, Trey Sermon is doing well according to Ohio State. Flew back to Columbus with the Buckeyes yesterday. That was, I think, probably a very disappointing and a little bit scary for him. He is apparently doing okay. No word on his condition and prognosis in terms of when he'll be back to 100%. But he's doing okay and back in Columbus as we speak. So, replacing him now next year. We had questions on our post-game live stream. Tony Gerdeman and I did on our Buckeye Weekly post-game live stream. Who's the starting running back for this team next fall? Because you've got a whole bunch of options. And then, does the answer to that change by the time the Michigan game rolls around? And the subtext there for people who are not reading between the lines is, so they've got a 5-star true freshman, Travion Henderson, coming in. can he, does he win the job at the beginning of the year, or can he steal the job by the middle or end of the year?
He can. He certainly can. I tend to think he won't start in September, but could he be part of a two-headed monster? I think he will be probably pretty early. What I think is interesting is, what is this offseason like for Marcus Crowley? We didn't, he got in there a little bit on Monday night. It wasn't exactly a great spot to kind of really get your first meaningful snaps, but that's a guy I think has some upside. Mayan Williams has shown to be, I think, probably a guy who'll end up being better than his ranking. That's another guy I think could be in there. This is not to knock Master Teague, but I view him strictly as a change of pace. You've worn the defense down. It's the third quarter. Then you bring in someone like that who just, runs so hard and physical, and you just kind of pound a defense that way. I don't know that he's a feature back. So I would expect someone like Mayan Williams or Marcus Crowley or Travion Henderson to step up, and maybe. But it was apparent last night that Trey Sermon was if it wasn't apparent in the last few weeks, it was certainly apparent last night that Trey Sermon was far and away the best running back on this roster. And there are some young guys who I think can make some steps here this offseason. So I think that's going to be my question on offense as well, because I actually am not as worried about the quarterback position.
Yeah, and that's we will have plenty of time, as we said, 232 days till the Minnesota game. It's right around the corner. We will have plenty of time to break down all of these different positional question marks going into next year. It's going to be a fascinating offseason between sort of the unanswered questions from this season, the end of this year, with the transfer portal as active as it is likely going to be in both directions for Ohio State, with a whole new quarterback battle. Quarterback battles are always fun. Quarterback battles are also good for business, because everyone is really interested in who's going to play, who's leading, who's still numbered. Is it 1 and 1A? Is it 1-2? The best place to find all of that information all year long is going to be at BuckeyeScoop.com. We have this has been one heck of a first season for us. There has been a whole lot of interesting stuff that we're probably not anticipating that we were going to have to be covering as we launched the site last June. And it has been a really fun and interesting time to be on that site for all of our members. So if you are interested in joining, you can go to BuckeyeScoop.com, sign up for a membership right now, get a discount as an annual membership. That'll get you all the way through the end of next season and probably the national championship game next year, which is in Indianapolis, Indiana. So that would be a fun one to see if the Buckeyes can get back to that national title game again in the state next door. So that you can sign up at BuckeyeScoop.com. We also have a ton of great podcasts that'll help get you through the offseason as well. You can find all of those on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. You can subscribe right there. Also leave us a 5-star rating and review while you're there. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for following along all season. Greatly appreciate your support and your listenership. And we will talk to you tomorrow.